The two-day national convention, which drew more than 1,000 delegates from over 200 organizations, wrapped up in Tshwane, Gauteng yesterday. Convened by President Cyril Ramaphosa, the gathering was set to be the launch of a citizen-driven national dialogue aimed at confronting South Africa's many challenges, including unemployment, crime, corruption, health and education. Delegates hailed it as a moment for ordinary people to take charge of the country's direction. But beyond the rhetoric, the question now is whether the dialogue will deliver real change. For more on this, we're joined by Boichoko Ditlhake, the chairperson of the Convention Organising Committee. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ditlhake. I really do appreciate it. Would you say that the convention was a success? I asked that in context and to the backdrop of the withdrawal of the legacy foundations that said it was rushed.
Thank you very much and good afternoon to your viewers. The convention was a resounding success. Over 1,000 delegates across the length and breadth of our republic responded to the call. And they indeed started the dialogue by reflecting on critical issues, even redefining how they see the dialogue unlock going forward. And I think it was a resounding success. The withdrawal of the foundations, as you said, I believe assisted South Africans to actually respond to the call and ensure that they take ownership of the process, and they indeed did over the past 2 days.
There were moments during the convention where it felt like this was being figured out on the spot, on the fly, especially around some of the teething issues, around what the house rules ought to be, how the process should go. I mean, on day one, the program didn't quite start on time. Talk to us about what some of the key problems were that the convention faced and how it addressed them.
It was a very mammoth task to be undertaken, and especially in the period that we did. There were some teething logistical challenges, which the team worked around the clock to resolve, and they indeed resolved. You'll recall that some of the delegates arrived in the morning of the convention, but they indeed participated. The spirits were very high. There were also some of the issues which emerged in the middle of the convention, but to me, these represent the commitment by South Africans to ensure that their voice should be heard and that it should be citizen-led. And I think that expression was more so resounding throughout the 2 days of the convention.
What were the logistical problems that the Convention Organising Committee faced?
As I've indicated, some delegates arrived late, not late, they arrived in the morning, and they chose not to even go to their accommodation, but to head straight to the convention, which enabled us to start not too much late, but to enable us to meet the obligations as outlined in the program.
Yeah,
those were the key. The logistics were the key, and the team was able to respond to them.
Yeah. Early in the week, I had interviewed one of the organizing committee spokespeople, Anzio Jacobs, and he had indicated that the budget for the first national convention was set at around 20 million rand. Were there cost overruns?
I don't believe there were cost overruns. Remember, this convention was supported both by the contribution from the government and the private sector or ordinary South Africans. I don't think we went overrun. We are currently compiling the expenditure and the cost. We indeed did not go over the budget. We met the budget, otherwise we would have experienced challenges along the way. We will present that consolidated report to the newly elected steering committee in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and one of the issues around the steering committee was that all the tracks, there were 22, had to go and nominate, all the sectoral tracks had to go and nominate a representative that would form part of this. And there were some organizations that said, well, the sectoral tracks that have been identified here don't quite fit where we fall. One of them being, for instance, the community of Rastafarians in South Africa, 3 million of them who don't feel that they ordinarily fit into religious organizations or traditional leaders or any of those neatly defined categories. How did the convention address those questions of the uncategorized, so to speak?
Remember, the main purpose of this process is to ensure that it's owned by all South Africans. We had to expand the sectoral formations. You'll recall that during that consultation that you referred to, when various sectors went to consult, there was a big group which remained in the plenary, and they were all happy because some sectoral formations were constituted during the course of the conference, and those will be announced during the course of the week as soon as we have consolidated those reports.
Yeah. Importantly here, Mr. Boichoko, is the question around what comes after the fact of the nomination of the steering committee. What will be the very specific powers and duties of the steering committee?
Yes, there is a document which was also circulated during the convention, which was presented as well. The idea was that that is a framework, a document for discussions. We have given the participants and the sectors about 2 weeks in the first instance to select and democratically identify their representatives to be advanced to the steering committee. But secondly, to strengthen the framework document which guides the roles and responsibility. Remember, as a steering committee, it is responsible to steer and ensure that South Africans remain engaged over the next 6 to 7 months during this process. They are the leadership. It is a citizen-led process, and they have to guarantee that it remains in that spirit.
Yeah. What were some of the most pressing issues that were raised from the floor around what some of the high priority agenda items of the national dialogue ought to be that was raised by the organizations and delegates represented there?
You will recall that the convention was not intended to discuss the deep issues. The convention was designed to look into the processes. We, however, indeed discussed some of the key issues purely as a purpose of testing the methodology which are going to be unfolded as we go along the process. However, in that sense, some of the key issues emerged. For example, quality education, land reform and agrarian reform, unemployment, and especially for the youth, and many other critical issues that the various sectors of South Africa are confronted with, which included the economy.
Yeah. And just lastly, what will be the process over the next 2 weeks? How are the sectors and sector representatives meant to engage, and what is the process through which they will submit their nominee? And if there are any objections, how will the convention deal with the objections?
We have given the sectors a framework in which they have to follow. One, they have to engage with their sectors. They've already given us the names of their conveners. If they need help, they will be able to call upon us. There is a special email which has been established to facilitate that process. Where there are conflicts, a whole sector will be convened to reflect and ensure that the leadership of that sector is agreed and democratically elected.
Yeah. Mr. Boichoko, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it, and all the best over the next 2 weeks in putting together the steering committee. That is the chairperson of the first National Convention Organizing Committee, Mr. Boichoko Ditlhake.